Hey, Kyle, welcome to the His and Her Money
Hey,
Show.
Kyle.
Hey guys.
We are super glad to have you here because you've done something that a lot of people have a deep desire to do. You know what it's like to be completely debt free, and we're excited to have you here to share how you were able to do that. But before we start talking about your incredible journey, can you say hello to everyone that's tuned in right now and let them know what you are all about?
Yeah. Hey guys, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to share this message, and I really think it's just a message of hope and hope around finances and freedom from debt and finances. So, my name is Kyle Depiesse. I've got a wife. Her name is Lois. We've been married for a little bit over 6 years, and we have a 2-year-old son, a toddler, who's running around and repeating everything we say. It's just a huge blessing and a great gift, and his name is Cal.
Awesome. Love it. So let's talk about your debt-free journey. Tell our audience how much you were in debt, how much money were you in debt, and what type of debt was it, and how long did it take you to pay it off?
Yeah, I'll break it down. So we had $380,000 in debt, and that was split in three different areas. We had a car loan for 15,000. I had a mortgage on a condo that I bought before we were married, and that was about 90,000. And the remainder was our primary mortgage, 275,000. And so that journey took us about 38 months, and so just a little bit over 3 years. And what we found is halfway through that journey, we just decided to sell the condo that we had. It wasn't a blessing. We wouldn't have bought it back had we had all the money sitting in front of us. I think it was cash flowing you guys maybe $80 a month. And when the property management company would take out a fee, we weren't making any money on it. So we decided to sell it. So you kind of subtract out that 90, and really it came out to about $290,000 in total in 38 months.
That's incredible.
All of it's
Wow.
incredible. Not
Yeah.
just part of
All
it.
of it.
All of it is
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's go back to the beginning because we're here at the finish line, but let's rewind the clock back just a little bit because you and your wife made the decision to even start the journey to debt freedom. But what caused you all to even have that conversation? Because nothing you mentioned was, out of the norm. You had a mortgage, you had two mortgages, but you had obviously a renter in the condo and you had a car loan. No big deal, right? To most people, but what's the big deal? So, what caused you all to say, nope, I don't want this debt, even though it's kind of normalized? We need to get rid of it.
Great question. And I love telling this story because I think it awakens a lot of people to where they're at. Because you're right, it's so normal, and it's what everyone does. You're just in debt, and that's a part of life. But so what I kind of have this tradition of, in between Christmas and New Year's, I look at goals, and goals in different categories, right? Physical, health, career, finance, faith. And I say, we just take that time, we set goals, and we look at what we accomplished or didn't accomplish in the previous year. So I like to carve out that time between Christmas and New Year's and just kind of spend some time in reflection. And I don't know where I heard this, but you can go to the Social Security website, socialsecurity.gov, create your profile using your Social Security number, and it pulls your life to date earnings. And so I did that, and I said, huh, where did all that money go? Because I don't, it's gone. We had a large negative net worth number. And so I did that, it came out to around $1 million, which sounds like a lot, but the average person is going to make that, right? If you work from 25 to 45, that's 40 years. You'll make that in your lifetime. And so I said to my wife, I was like, Lois, hey, what's your social security number? And she's like, why? And I said, well, just trust me, I needed out. So I was going to do the same thing with hers. And so I ran hers, and it was almost the same number. And so I was like, oh, all that money, where did it go? We have nothing to show for it. And as Christians, we believe we are stewarding the money, God's money. And I just felt that we had been doing a really bad job. And so in that moment, I kind of got, angry, frustrated, upset, sad, all this little storm of emotion. I said, we have to do something different because what we're doing is not working. And like most people would probably say, boy, it'd be nice to make more money. It'd be nice to do this. But I had said, well, if we can't manage the money God's given us, why would he give us more? And so we were really convicted in that moment and we had to make a change. I read Dave Ramsey's book a couple years past when I was on vacation, and I read it, and like most people, put it back on the bookshelf and said, "That's nice to know." But that came back to me. I said, "Okay, we're going to jump on board. We're going to do Dave Ramsey's plan." I was teaching personal finance actually at the same time. I used to be a high school business teacher, and I just felt like this is what we should do. We took Financial Peace University, and we just ran with it, and we didn't look back.
Wow,
Wow.
talk about an aha moment. I recall, oh, I wasn't married at the time. I don't know how old I was, early 20s. And I remember one time receiving my W 2 right before it was time to do my taxes. And I looked and I saw the year to date. And I was like, what? How? Oh
Where to
my
go?
goodness. Yeah,
Yeah,
where did it go?
yeah,
And it was like from that day forth, I made a conscious decision to be intentional about my spending,
yeah,
to really literally know where all my money is going. And so I
yeah,
love that exercise that your wife and yourself that you all did. And that definitely catapulted something. So talk about the conversation though that you had with your wife after she
yeah.
gave you your social. Did you sit her down and say, look at this? We've actually made over $1 million.
Yeah.
And was she just as shocked as you were?
Yeah. Well, we're both numbers people. So I'm a finance degree. She's a CPA inactive. Or CPA now inactive. And so we both kind of get the numbers behind it. But what I found, and I think what's really interesting, and I love that you guys do this together because you're marriage focused, marriage centered. And I was on board immediately. My wife wasn't on board immediately. And I found, I'm like, why is she not? I'm showing her these numbers and these projections and what it would look like financially if we were out of debt, and it wasn't doing it for her. And so what I really learned is that I needed to speak her language. And instead of like, hey, let's sit down and let's look at the budget like every week, she wasn't into that. It didn't motivate her. What motivated her was to have these conversations of what would life look like without debt? What would that freedom look like for us? What could we do? Where could we go? And that motivated her, but it took me months to figure that out. And that might resonate with some folks that are listening, because one of the questions I get a lot is, how do you get your spouse on board? Right. And you guys probably see that all the time too. And if you ever read that, the five love languages, it's kind of similar to that in the sense that I'm wired a certain way and I speak a certain language, but that's not what my wife speaks. And it's really important to speak her language in this sense so that we can be united.
Yeah, what did you do in the meanwhile though? So she wasn't on board. So if you're talking to someone out there, do they just put everything on hold, or were you making traction moving full force ahead,
Yeah.
until she was able to get on board?
That's a great question. There was traction, but the traction was slower than when we were both united in the vision and moving forward together. So we were moving forward. It felt like small steps. We were learning, we were, budgeting together. There's just a growth in that. And it looks messy at first, right? All growth is messy, but especially at the beginning. But you have to stay with it and stick together, even though it's messy, because you're learning through that process. And you have to give each other grace. I use cash. He wasn't really, wasn't really into that. So we just had to work together. And a lot of times I would just be the one to go to the ATM, get cash, and say, "Okay, here we go." And she was on board with that. So it takes time, and that's my encouragement: is you do it for a month, and it might not look that great. It might look messy, but stay with it, and eventually it gets worked out.
How did you figure out how to talk to your wife? Because you said clearly, what you were doing at first, you were not speaking a language that
Yeah.
resonated with her. So, like, what was your process in figuring out how to discuss this tough topic with her?
Yeah. I wish I had a really great answer. And I think the answer, unfortunately, was trial and error. And it was after a month or 2 or 3 months of just, here's the budget. Let's look at the budget. Let's talk about it. This is what it looks. Here's what financial projections look like. And just being in tune and listening to my wife and realizing, hey, what I'm doing is not working. And it's not her fault. It's my fault. And I don't think I came to that conclusion right away. It just took me time to realize that how I was trying to communicate with my wife wasn't working. Hey, Kyle, look in the mirror. Maybe you need to try another way of doing that. And I think sometimes we get into, in marriage, especially, we point the finger at the other person, but really you need to point it back at yourself and say, what am I doing, or what can I do differently to speak to my wife in a way that gets her excited about this and gets her to see the vision.
Yeah. So talk about your next steps. So the first steps was, okay, creating a budget, going to the ATM, getting cash out. What did you guys do from there?
Um, I think it was just so it's funny when we first got married, I had a this is so embarrassing. I had a calendar appointment on our calendars that said like Friday finance fun. And so I said, every Friday, let's get together and but it just wasn't working. Right. So we just kind of changed those discussions to be once a month. We kind of look at our next budget and we kind of lay it out. And then probably quarterly, we would just have like what I would call like a dream date and just kind of say, here's what we've done so far and here's where we're going. Let's just get outside of our routine. Let's get outside of the house. Let's go for a walk or let's do whatever it is. And let's get into a space that just kind of inspires us and keeps us pulling towards this vision. And so that worked for us. I think, different things work for different couples. And I think it's also really important to celebrate milestones together. Because if you don't kind of step back and say, hey, look at this is what we've done so far, here's our progress, let's celebrate it. And it doesn't need to be in a really expensive way. It just can be something fun that you do together to just say, we've done great so far. Let's stay with it. We're going to keep going. So I think I would try and find like those little things to do to celebrate accomplishments and keep us motivated because you guys probably know, as many people know who are on this journey, 38 months, it's a long time. And if you're not doing something that keeps you motivated, you burn out through that process. So that's what we did. And it worked for us.
How did you all figure out which benchmarks to pause and celebrate?
What we would try and do is set, kind of quarterly goals for us. And what would that look like? And our income was kind of irregular through the process. So we were never right on this at all. And in fact, I thought through my nerdy projections, we'd have it done in May of 2020. And we finished it over 12 months in advance of that because, well, I think God blessed us through this entire process and our income had almost doubled through that time. And so I think it was just kind of setting what are, measurable milestones that we can hit. How do we get excited about that? And then what can we do to celebrate?
There are a lot of people listening and they're in the same boat. Like they too also have irregular income. So you bring up a very good
Yeah.
point. How did you guys properly budget on an irregular income?
Well, we had a base that we knew was going to come in, and then that base covered all of our expenses, all of everything that we did. And so the bonuses or the irregularity behind our income was quarterly. And we had to train ourselves. It's funny, as soon as those irregular incomes would come in, we knew our expenses were covered. We knew our baseline was covered. The day that hit was the day that we just threw it right at the mortgage. We didn't even allow ourselves to kind of, oh, what could we do with this would be nice to go on vacation. We just didn't. We had an agreement between ourselves that as soon as that came in, it was gone. And so that was, I don't really know that we had a good way to handle it other than just to say, here's our agreement, here's our commitment to each other. A budget is a written commitment between us, and we're going to stick with that. And we're just going to send it off because we believe in what we're moving towards.
Does your credit score have you down and looking for solutions? You may just find the answers you're looking for with Credit Sesame. Credit Sesame is your solution for a free no-hassle credit score, credit analysis, and tips for managing your money. They are here to help you take control of and have the tools you need to bring about a bright financial future. Get empowered today. There's no credit card required. Receive identity theft protection up to $50,000 and discover a marketplace for credit and loan officers that will help you get to your next level. Visit hisandhermoney.com/credit sesame for more details.
So at first, you all, this whole thing started with you randomly finding a tip that said, hey, check the Social Security website and see how much you made over your lifetime. So, and you were like floored, like, I don't know where this money went. So you all were at that place to where money was coming in, but money was leaving out at the same rate almost. And then you buckle down and you pay off $300,000 in a little bit over 3 years. So how in the world did your spending habits change? How did you get your spending habits to change? Did you all cut a bunch of stuff out? Did you change the way you all were handling? Like, help us understand
Yeah.
that transition, because
Sure.
you said, now on one hand, 38 months is a long time, but $300,000 in 38 months
It's not
is
a long
not,
time.
that's like
Yeah.
a short amount of
Yeah.
time, considering the amount of debt that you all were in.
Yeah. And anyone who's listening, and as you guys know, that I think John Maxwell calls it the law of sacrifice. In order to go up somewhere, you have to give up some things. And, we would look at our budget and say, where could we do that? Where could we cut? And it all falls under the bucket of living below your means. And here's a perfect example. We have 2 used cars, and the total value of those cars is around 7 to 8% of our annual income. That's an example, I think, of living below your means. They're both used cars from 2011. Our mortgage payment, I think, was about 10 to 12% of our take home pay. Again, and most people probably are closer to 25 to 30. And so I think in those instances, that's where true traction is made, because, you know, I'm under you have offense and defense. Offense is making more money. Defense is cutting expenses. You can only cut so many expenses, right? You can only live so tight for so long. Our focus really was on how do we increase our income, and that's really where our focus was, while being mindful and being good stewards of our expenses. We didn't go on vacation. We avoided lifestyle creep. As our income went up during this process, we didn't go on vacations. We didn't do anything elaborate. And so, I think people look for this silver bullet of an answer for that question, and I think you just have to do the work. And I think the real focus is your income. Can only cut expenses so far, but your income could be unlimited. And I think that's where folks could really focus on: invest in yourself, believe in yourself, find ways to put yourself in a position where you're paid, commissioned, because that's where you truly can make some traction.
Yeah. So talk about the ways. How did you and your wife, how did you all increase your income? What were some of the things that you all did?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is when we started this process, I was a high school business teacher, and my wife is in sales, in staffing and recruiting. And we had our son in 2017 of March, and I actually left my job teaching to become a stay-at-home dad. So we went from 2 incomes to 1, but in the meantime, our total household income almost doubled, because we felt that our best path to make this happen was investing in my wife, doing everything we could to allow her to do really well in her job. And I know my wife, she's a hard worker. She's got a great job. And we just believed that we could really do this and really focus on it. And I mean, I wish she was here next to me, but she really crushed it. She did such a great job. And I felt my job was to set her up as best I could for success, because that's where we believed in, and that's what we thought we could do. So she was in sales. It was a commission job. And you guys, she crushed it. She's awesome. She's so great. And, but that's my encouragement. Someone had just messaged me the other day and said, "How'd you guys pay all this off? What is your job? You must be a doctor or something like that." I said, "No, I think you should find a job where you're paid according to the value that you bring, and it's uncapped. And most of the time, that's a commission job."
Yeah. I like your approach, because I think what's so unique about your story was that you all made the decision for you to come home while you were in this debt-free journey, right? Like most people are like, "Oh no, let me hold on until we're finished." But you
Yeah.
guys took a calculated risk and made that decision even in your journey, and it ended up paying off for you. And I think one of the benefits of your wife being able to crush it as she did was knowing that both of your son, your son together,
Yeah.
was being taken care of by such a great father. Like I
Yeah.
felt like you had to do your part as well too, so she can go out and become all that she needed to be. So I think that's remarkable.
Yeah,
Love
let's
your
stay
story.
there, because I mean, our story was similar.
Yeah.
When we were paying off our mortgage.
Yep.
I was working outside the home, Ty was working inside the home.
Mhm.
And I think that, talk to that stay at home part of the
Yep.
couple that's listening right now.
Mhm.
How did you play your role? Like you said, it was, we wanted to invest in our wife. I wanted to make sure that I set her up by doing this. So if there is a
Yeah.
couple listening where one works outside the home, one works inside the home, how did you do your part inside the home to make sure that, as you said, she was able to go out and crush it?
I think um, doing things that would mentally take things off her plate. And so, you guys, I was so out of my element. I never thought stay-at-home dad was a part of what I'd be doing. And so, I had to learn. I had no idea what I was doing. But if I could take things off of her plate so that when she would come home, she could just be in full on mom playing with son and being with the family, not have to worry about little things in the back of her mind. Like, I've got to, got to go get this. This is on my list of errands, and cook this or buy this or go get this. I would try my best. I'm not perfect, but I'd try my best to take that off of her plate, so mentally, when she came home, she could just be present with family, and we could do that. And I think that's really important. So those anyone who's staying at home, there is so much value that you bring. It is hard sometimes to measure that, but don't let that influence or affect your self worth, because you bring so much value to the total family. It just might not economically look like you're bringing value, which is not the same, because it's so important to do that. My wife just had stress taken off of her shoulders because of things that I would do. And that was, that was just the season that we're in. And so we accepted that. It took me a long time to kind of get over the complex of being a stay-at-home dad, which was a big thing that I had to work through too. But I knew that we had a vision together. We didn't just whimsically come up with this. We prayed about it. We sought wisdom through counsel and elders, and we knew we believed in what we were doing, even though in the short term it would require some sacrifices. So we just believed in that. And we believed in each other.
So you guys sold the condo, so that removed the 90,000, and the remainder of the debt you guys just pushed and grind through employment, also lowering your costs, not going out to vacations and things like that. Was there anything else that maybe we didn't mention that you guys did in order to knock this debt out so quickly?
I don't think so. I mean, we were also cash flowing because I was teaching, but at the same time I was going to school to get my teaching license at a private school. So we were cash flowing that. And we also cash flowed a car. We bought a used car through this process and had a kid. And as you know, kids aren't cheap as well. So not really. And again, I think, when I talk about our journey, I don't think there's anything special. I think everyone knows what to do. It's just right here. You have to have the mindset and the mentality that I'm going to make some sacrifices so that when we're done with this, there's options, there's choice. And that's a really beautiful place to be in. So, tactically, no. The biggest thing that I tell people is live below your means, especially in the most expensive areas, which are usually housing and cars, housing, transportation. Those are the biggest areas I think that folks should focus on.
You know what the key to your story is? The biggest weapon that you all had in your journey to debt freedom was you both killed pride.
Yeah.
You both killed pride. You were looking, it started with you looking at how much money you made through the course of your lifetime, realizing that, man, I blew this. Your wife realizing, man, I blew this. At first, she wasn't on board, but eventually she killed pride to get on board. You killed pride saying, I'll be a stay-at-home dad just to make sure that we position ourselves to win in the end. And I think that was the biggest tool for you all to pay off close to $300,000 in 38 months. But that day came though.
Yeah.
After all this pride being destroyed, after all these sacrifices, after all this budgeting and not going on vacations, not doing this, that, and the other, the day came where you and your wife were able to make the very last debt payment. There are plenty of people listening that don't know what that feels like and really are listening like, wow, that must feel awesome. Can you describe that day to us? Like what took place and how it felt?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're right. Humility you have to have humility to say that what I've been doing has gotten me what I've gotten. And if I want to do something different, I got to do something different. And most people are unwilling to do that. Thanks for saying that. That's a really great point. I remember the day, I'll never forget the day we both we had our mortgage through Bell Bank. And oddly enough, you could not make extra payments to a mortgage on their website. So we had to physically drop off a check. And so my son and I were doing that for the last 6 months. And my wife took off work that morning, and all three of us went to the bank, and we paid it off. We took some pictures, and just soaked up that feeling. And it's hard to describe and explain because we're so used to doing that. And, there was emotion around that. We went on vacation, a couple weeks after that to Florida. We shared tears, and it's so cool. I mean, you take off $300,000 of weight on your shoulders, and how do you describe that? It's a feeling that it's hard to explain. I tell people, put a weighted vest on, pick up a 40-pound dumbbell, another 40-pound dumbbell, and I'll just stand there. And that's what it feels like. And then I'll drop it. That's what it's like being debt free. And that's a
Yeah.
really good visual. Being a former teacher, I love to do that stuff with folks so that they understand what it feels like. And I mean, you guys know the feeling. It's incredible.
Hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. To be honest, I put that day up to the other days, like marriage
Hold on
and
now. Wait a
having,
minute.
I do. Like getting married
Yeah.
and having our children. I remember holding our babies in the hospital. It was just so rewarding. I felt like that was the moment for us as well
Yeah.
too, that I can add to that. It
Yeah.
was just because I knew that it was impacting our family,
Hmm.
and I
Oh
knew
yeah.
that it was benefiting our family. And you guys that are listening, that's what you're doing. You're in this journey. It's not in vain. You're getting out of debt. You're making these sacrifices. It feels like you're not making traction, but you are, and you're doing it for your family. And one day you're going to be able to be on the other side and say it was all worth it.
Yeah. And your marriage, I mean, the respect, the communication, the love, the admiration for each other, it all grew for us through that process. And I know it does with other couples as well, to accomplish this goal together. It's so, so cool.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that options will open up after you have no debt. There's so many different options. What are your options now? What are some of the things that you guys are looking to do, or your goals?
Yeah.
What's in it for the future for you all?
So my wife has got a pretty flexible job as well. And actually, through this process, when my son Cal would sleep, I'd study for my licenses. So I'm licensed as a financial advisor now, and I'm doing that independently. So we're both building this life around a lifestyle, and we live in Minneapolis. It gets cold here in the winter, and our dream is to spend a couple weeks of the year in January, February, and go somewhere warm and just be there for a few weeks. Even in the summer, whether it's up north in Minnesota on Lake Country, or I'm in love with Ireland, we spend a couple weeks in Ireland. That's kind of what it allows us to do. We don't have a mortgage. We could kind of do whatever we like with that. So we're building towards that, and it involves travel. It involves being in other places. And it also involves showing other people how to do this, because when you guys, as you know, when you go through this, you can't help but not share it with people. And you want to help other people feel the same way. So that's what we're working towards. It involves a lot of travel and flexibility.
What did you learn about yourself that you didn't know about yourself before you went on this journey?
It's such a good question, because it's not just a financial journey, it's a personal growth and discovery journey. And I think what I learned about myself is that, and oddly enough, through this process, I did an Ironman last September in Madison, and it's the same thing. You just learn so much about yourself. And it is the unwavering commitment to a goal, when that goal stretches you, and then when you believe in that goal and you believe in the vision that you're heading towards, you can do anything. And as a husband and wife and as a family, we can do anything that we set our minds to. And I think that's what we really learned. I mean, it's just such an amazing thing to do together. The dedication and the commitment to each other and that goal is something that I knew I had within me, but this just kind of really brought it out.
How would you encourage somebody who's listening, who has been going back and forth in their mind, like, I know I need to get out of debt, but I have this obstacle, I have this circumstance, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it? What would you tell them?
So when I pulled that life to date earnings, I manufactured an emotion that forced me to change. And that emotion you can manufacture, whether it's through that same process I did or another way, because I think it's human nature that we don't change until we have to change. And a lot of times that's too late. So don't wait for that moment when it might be too late or you're forced to change. Maybe mom or dad gets really sick and you have to do something different, or your son or daughter gets sick, or your spouse gets sick. Don't wait for change. Do that change now. Manufacture that emotion that like, I'm tired of having money, making money, but not really keeping it. Find that emotion, tap into that emotion, manufacture that emotion if you have to, because anyone can do it. I've seen, I follow on Instagram so many different accounts, and people are doing it all income levels, all professions, all people, all walks of life. Everyone's doing it.
Awesome. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do so?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, just kind of sharing our story, and also I'm kind of a personal growth junkie. I like that stuff, just committing to big goals and that. So usually it's just Kyle _ Depiesse, and no one ever gets my last name correct when they first look at it. But if you said Dep, yes, really fast, that's kind of it. So usually Instagram's probably the best way to do it.
All right. We'll be sure to have it linked up in the show notes of this episode. Congratulations.
Congrats.
You all
both.
killed it. $300,000 destroyed in just over 3 years. You all deserve to be celebrated. Congratulations on your debt freedom. And thank you for sharing with our audience today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.